Hey everyone, Kyle here. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain a little bit. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so much more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.fm. They'll have everything you need all in one place. I can speak from my experience. It's been awesome so far and super easy. So go check it out, guys, and we'll see you later. Welcome, everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have with me Erin. Erin, how are you today?
I'm great, Kyle. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I'm super excited to talk about your travel experiences today. I know you've had kind of a unique situation where you've got to teach abroad, so I'm really excited to hear about that and some of your other travels. So yeah, should be a fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I have to say, yeah, thanks for having me today. I know we found each other on Instagram. And so we're both, as you said, I live abroad and you like to travel and you've been doing some great things. So it's nice to connect.
Yeah, it's always fun to connect with fellow travelers and swap stories, and that's really the whole point behind this podcast.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great.
Yeah. So just kind of start out, give the listeners a little bit of background on yourself and how you got to this point where you're now teaching abroad.
Okay. Well, I'm teaching abroad. I teach English in Oman. I've been there almost 4 years. And
Wow.
then prior to that, I was teaching in China. So before I get into, my experiences, so before that, I was in the States. I'm from Michigan originally, from the east side of Detroit. And, I always loved travel. And every time I'd go abroad, I would always want to stay there and work there. And I thought, no, I need to come home.
Hmm.
And before I moved over to China, I was in broadcasting. I was actually a morning show co-host in radio for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so finally, I back in 2012, I was talking to different people who had taught abroad, who had just lived abroad, and I thought, okay, somebody had suggested, getting my teaching certificate because I did not have a bachelor's of education. So I finally, in 2012, I went ahead and did my teaching English as a foreign language certificate, and it was online, and it was about 1 month it took me. So I got my certificate, and then I had some friends that were moving to China in Nanchang, which is Jiangxi province, south of Shanghai. And
Okay.
I just networked with some people, went on to this expat website in Nanchang, and the owner of that website put me in touch with his boss at a university there. And she said, yes, we're hiring. And they just wanted any bachelor's degree plus some form of teaching certificate, which I had just gotten. And then I was hired. So I went from, being here in the US, never thought about teaching, never thought about, how could I really live abroad and actually make money, to being overseas now for 9 years, almost nine
Wow.
years, maybe 10 years, because I did a study abroad also for about a year. So, yeah, so I did that. And then I was in 5 years in China. And then I really needed a break. Not a break. I love China, but I was there just teaching general English at a university. And so I just thought, I had traveled all around Southeast Asia. I did a lot of travel around China. And one thing I love about living abroad is learning about other cultures. So I
Mhm.
told myself, I was ready to find somewhere else. And then I decided that I told myself I wanted to go to the Middle East, and it didn't matter where. I was just really fascinated with, with the culture there. And I had some friends who had taught in the Middle East and they said they loved it. And so I went ahead after I left China, and then I did another certificate. It's called a CELTA. And basically it's a teaching language certificate, but it's in person, it's face to face, and it's 4 weeks, and it's Cambridge based. And it's
Oh, wow.
more, yeah, so it's more intense. You're in the classroom, you're teaching, but you're teaching, real students, and then you get feedback from your peers and from the two teachers. So I did that. And then in addition to that, I did my master's for teaching English to speakers of other languages. And then I was at a education conference, and they had a job fair, and they were looking for openings in Oman. And so I interviewed. They had a couple representatives from the Ministry of Education, of higher education, and an agency there representing them. So I interviewed with them, and then they said, okay, you can come over and teach. So that's what led me to Oman. And so I've been there now almost, it'll be 4 years in September.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like you kind of stumbled upon all of this, but it's worked out really well for you.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, as I said, I never thought about teaching when I was, at university, and I never thought about, I mean, as I said, I loved to travel, but I always came back because I thought, no, I need to come back. I love my job. All the reasons why I thought, I don't know if I could really do this. But then the more I thought about it, and it's funny because when I got my teaching certificate in the beginning, I thought, well, teaching would be the way to get me abroad, and then I could go from there. But I ended up, I loved it. I loved it so much that I went on to get this other certificate and then my master's in teaching. So I was able to get my job in the Middle East. But it's funny, like you said, I kind of stumbled upon it, because if you had asked me even 12 years ago, 10, just before 10 years ago, if you had asked me, if this is what I would be doing, I wouldn't have even thought about it. And then during the pandemic, I I loved writing. I always had a blog when I was living in China. I would send to friends and family. And then I moved to Oman and I started a new blog. And, I just sent it to friends and family. But then I stumbled upon a travel writers group. And I signed up for their conference. And then I've been doing travel writing in addition to my teaching. So it's been really good.
Wow. What's the travel writers group?
So the travel writers group, it was Great Escape Publishing, and then it got moved. A couple of people took over, and now it is it's called Travel Writers University through the Travel Writers Cafe. And it's just, if anybody's interested, yeah, it's just a really good group of writers. And there's a Facebook group. We do posts on Instagram, and that's how I found you, is that I was just when you're on Instagram and you're doing different travel things, and then you just come across other people who are like you were doing your podcast and you were highlighting some things. And so that's kind of how we connected. But it's just a great way to connect with other people.
Yeah, it sounds like a good group. I'm assuming it's people from all over the world?
Yeah, it's all over the world. You have people from, the US and Canada, and then you have also people like myself in Oman, people in Thailand, Australia. Some people are in different parts of the Caribbean. Some people, I think we do have a few members that are currently in the UK, and a few who are moving. So yeah, it's a really nice group of people, and everyone kind of helps each other, and it's been really good.
Oh, wow, that's amazing to hear. It's as I've gotten more into this and continued to build my podcast and other outlets that I have, it's been really cool to just come across all these different types of people from all over the world. And, they're all doing different things, but it's all centered around travel. And it's just really fun to see, how connected the world is. I find it really fascinating.
No, I agree. And I told you before we started this that, I was just the variety of guests that you have had. You have people giving tips, and then you have people taught who are in Africa, and then all these just different experiences, and people that you've met while traveling, and friends of yours that have been doing some really cool things. And like you said, it's like we're all connected because it's like, oh, I want to go to Alaska, let's hear about this, and I want to go here, let's listen to this. And so it's really, because I like when your podcast that you trying to encourage people to travel, and really good thing. And it's always nice when you can connect with other people, because if let's say I haven't been to a place that you've been to, it's like we can all relate in the sense of when we're traveling, the experiences that we can get out of traveling, and the people that you can meet, and the people that you can connect with online even. I mean, I feel like Instagram and some of these and Facebook can connect people in a good way, which is really good.
Yeah, definitely. And I've said it a couple times on the podcast, but like, when you're going to a place like Oman, somewhere where we don't hear much about, we probably, I would say in the US, I would guess there's a negative connotation when we hear about a country like that because of how
Yeah.
it's portrayed. But when you go to a place, I'm assuming it's not like, what we hear on the media here.
No, that's exactly it. And it's funny because sadly, unfortunately, right, because in the US our media tends to taint, a different picture because I get that a lot. Like, first of all, I live in Oman and it's where is that? Or they think I'm
Yeah.
talking about Amman, Jordan. And then the first question that anybody asks me, is it safe? And I said, of
Hmm.
course, been there almost 4 years. It's safer than some parts of the US. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
um it's one of those. I When I was doing my master's, I had a classmate who had taught in Oman and he raved about it. And then I had some other friends who weren't teaching in Oman, but they've taught in other parts of, the Middle East, and they've just said, "Oh, Oman is beautiful. It's such a lovely country, blah blah blah. You should try to go there." And then ironically, when I stumbled upon that job fair and it was Oman, and yet, as I said, I do travel writing and I've been writing a lot about Oman just to get people to come to the country and to get people to understand. I mean, the hospitality alone is simply amazing. You will never meet a friendlier country. I mean, people that will go out of their way above and beyond to help you no matter what in any situation. People, you'll be hiking and people will invite you to have coffee and dates or invite you to have lunch or, oh, come to my home. And it's completely normal there. It is funny
Hmm.
because it's funny and kind of sad because I remember last week I was with my mom somewhere. We were on a road trip and somebody had offered some help and I thought, we're set. And it's sad because I'm thinking they might have meant no problem, but sometimes you just, unfortunately, you don't know here. Like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to get into that side of things. I know that's not the reason for this. So I won't go there, but in Oman, it is just genuine helping and friendly people. And another thing is people just assume it's just the desert. While there is a desert in Oman, I mean, they have beautiful hiking and diving and snorkeling and yes, desert and ancient villages to go around. It's kind of, I always tell people it's like an oasis. I mean, you have the best. And though for those in the States, the winter 70 degrees and summers when I left for holiday in June, it was about, I don't know, 115, 120 plus
Wow.
humidity. Yeah, it can get quite hot quite early, but it's a fascinating country and I've learned so much about their culture. I mean, I've learned and I've learned
Hmm.
about, culturally, I've gone to, weddings there and I've been invited to iftar meals during Ramadan and I've been invited to other things. So I've really learned a lot about the culture as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. What has it been like going to, the weddings over there, experiencing a holiday like Ramadan? What is that like?
Well, so Ramadan is, 30 days of everyone who's Muslim, they fast. So
Hmm.
from, dawn until sunset, they fast. And then during that 30 days, after the sun sets, they eat a meal called iftar. Now, people, they start with, dates and water, or they drink this like a fermented yogurt. And then after that, they might have, you know, um, some light dishes. And then I've been invited for iftar meals. So sometimes my friends will make, we'll first have water dates and laban, and then they might make, you know, because they're having us over. So they might make like a stew or maybe some pasta, chicken, pizza, sambosa, which is like an Indian samosa. So it varies from family to family. And also during that time, that I don't have to fast, but I also can't eat in public during that time. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so we're not allowed to. You will not eating in public
Huh.
for that as an expat. So being mindful. I mean, a lot of things during Ramadan too, a lot of shops are closed during the day, the supermarkets are open, but a lot of things like, let's say, a museum, that probably would be closed until the evening. And then, as I mentioned, there's a lot of hiking in Oman. So there really won't be a lot of hiking during that time, because everyone's fasting. So some might do an iftar hike where, you start to hike just before the sun sets, and then you break your fast together, and then you hike some more, and then you have a big meal after that. Yeah, so that's kind of Ramadan for 30 days. And then after Ramadan, there is Eid. Um, there's two Eids. So the first Eid is for 3 days, and that's where everybody, they celebrate, they go to friends, they go to families' homes, and they are together and they eat food. And then the second Eid, I think that one is about, I could be wrong, it's about 40 days or so after the first Eid, Eid al-Adha, and that's the bigger Eid where they prepare more special dishes. So they make something called shua, which they prepare goat meat, and they cook it under the ground. And in some regions they cook it for 12 hours. Some regions cook it for 48 hours. For meat lovers, shua is one of my favorite foods. So it's so
sounds amazing.
good. Yeah, it's really delicious. So that's kind of, Ramadan. And then weddings are a little bit different from what, the Western style weddings. So typically what happens is, first is there might be an engagement party, and then after the engagement party, it's kind of like the dowry, where the groom's family will bring the dowry, the money, to the bride. And then there'll be a celebration of it's usually like the women's side of the family and friends. And, there's maybe some music and, food and things like that. So that's kind of like the engagement party / sometimes the dowry party. And then the wedding itself, it varies. So a lot of times what will happen is there'll be a separate party for the men and then for the women. So for example, the men might get together maybe the night before or the week before, depending, and they'll just, have a celebration, have food, dancing, music, things like that. And then with the women, if it's at a big wedding hall, everyone will come to the wedding hall. Like all the ladies will come to the wedding hall, and then we'll eat food. And then sometimes it's usually around 11 or 12 at night, the bride will enter the hall, and then she will kind of walk up on stage, and then she will wait there for a little bit, and then all the ladies will take pictures with her. And then after that, then the groom, then what will happen is her face will be covered. Usually they cover her face with maybe a white cloth, so the groom can't see her face. And then the groom walks in, usually with his father. If he has any brothers, he'll walk with the brothers. And then usually the bride's brothers, if she has brothers, will walk in together. And then the groom will go up and then take off the white cloth to his bride. And then they will, they will sit down together, and then people take pictures. And then usually the kids come up, and sometimes they bring money to them. Sometimes they, wish them well. So it varies though from region to region and place to place. Obviously during COVID, a lot of people, the wedding halls were closed. So a lot of people started having weddings at home. So it's kind of the same concept, but I was at a friend's house in this afternoon wedding. But it was the same idea that she was there, and then they covered her face, and then the groom came in and then sat with her, and then the kids came up to greet them and give them some money. And then before the groom comes in, there's usually dancing. So usually the ladies will all dance and, have a good time and gather before the men come in.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's completely different. And usually it's not common for the groom. It's not common for any of his friends to come in. Usually the only men that will come in will usually just be the relatives, and that's it. And then the one wedding I was at, I think the groom came and I think stayed for maybe 20 minutes, and then they left together, and that was it. So usually it's almost like, because they've already signed the marriage certificate and they've already had kind of something beforehand. So it's usually just the pictures, the greeting, things like that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. It seems like a little bit like almost backwards from like a traditional wedding in the US. Typically we have the man up there first, and usually there's dancing and stuff after everything's done, not before.
Yeah. It is almost reversed. Yeah, it is. And then usually, for example, lately I'd say over the years my friends have said, a lot of brides will wear, typical white, white wedding dress, like maybe in the
Mhm.
States, how we do here. And then usually the next day they will go to their new home maybe, and then if they go to their new home, then they dress in traditional clothing to go to the new
Mhm.
home. And I think that's on day 2 or day 3. I think that's the second day where they go to their house.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never got to experience that, but it seems really intriguing to me.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I mean, I encourage, like, if people ever get a chance to come to Oman and I mean, as I said, you will meet people along the way, and if you ever get a chance to come to
Mhm.
a wedding, I'd say on the groom side, obviously, then go for it. Go if someone
Yeah.
invites you.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts about traveling is all the friends that you make around the world, and excuses you have to go visit. It's fun to potentially be a part of those types of things, and actually be immersed in the culture.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because we met somebody, my friends and I met somebody who was traveling around Oman for about I think she was there maybe a couple months a few years back. And then since then, we've been connecting, trying to meet up somewhere. And she just messaged me the other day and said, can we try to meet either back in Oman or somewhere else? And I said, absolutely. Just, let me know where and when, and we can plan something. So it's nice that I think too that when you meet people traveling, right, it's just a way of meeting again, or if somebody lives somewhere else, you can meet them, and it's yeah, it's a great thing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's been one of my favorite parts of traveling for sure. So I'm curious, having taught in Oman and in China, what differences have you seen between the two in terms of teaching in the classroom, and how does it compare to the US?
Well, let's see. So obviously, I US, but obviously just having grown up here, China
Hmm.
and Oman, the differences, I'd say, well, one big difference is that in Oman, so usually in elementary school, the children, boys and girls, have classes together. They're in the same classroom, and then from I believe grade 6 through high school, they're separated. So then the girls go to girls' school and the boys go to the boys' school. And then when they get to university or college, they are then back together in the classroom. But usually the boys sit on one side of the room and the girls sit on the other side of the room. And so it's, still split in the sense. Whereas in China, obviously it's mixed. It is mixed, and so they're used to working together. So I'd say
Hmm.
one big difference is when I taught in China, and I've taught both at university in both countries. So in China, I could just do an activity or do an exercise and put groups together, mixing with boys and girls. It didn't
Hmm.
matter. Oh, we're doing this project, so only girls work together, only boys. No, I always made sure I could have boys and girls together just to have it a little bit different. But in Oman, I can't really do that. Because the girls like working with the girls and the boys will only work with the boys. So that's fine. So that's one big difference is just, the education style. And I would say similarities. It's hard to teach. Obviously English is their second language for some of them,
Hmm.
well, for all of them. And so I would say in both cases, it can be hard to, you know, encourage them to speak English in China and Oman, because I mean, I'm so impressed that these students can actually study in English, because I'll admit, besides some Chinese food vocabulary and a few greetings in Arabic, I hardly know anything else, which is really sad because I find that it's really important. I feel it's really important to learn another language, especially when
Hmm.
you're living abroad, even so. So that's me. And I really need to step up on that. So for me, I'm always amazed that they can just communicate and study in English. So I think it just is challenging in both situations, to encourage them to speak, especially in front of other people, because you don't want to make a mistake. They're afraid that someone's going to laugh, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always saying just try, because you taking an exam in English is so impressive to me. I mean, I could never write an essay, 250 words in Arabic,
Yeah.
a cause and effect essay. I could never do that. So I'm always impressed with what capabilities these students can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then too, in Oman, it's a set curriculum. And so we have, there's the ministry sets the curriculum, and then we have, what to teach and, the goals by the end. So when I was in China, it was just more, okay, it's spoken English. Here's a book, you can use it, you don't have to use it, teach. So it was less structured, I guess, in China. It was more
Yeah.
just like, just get them to talk, encourage them. I mean, I know in China they do have a curriculum, but it was never really given and
Mm-hmm.
never really enforced. So and then so in Oman, that's also the difference, is that it is a set curriculum. We do have, the goals, you do have the expectations, what's to be taught, things like this. So you kind of know more of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I'm curious, since you said you can't speak much Arabic or Chinese, do you have someone else in the classroom who can, or are you just teaching the whole class in English, and if they can't understand, they have to figure it out?
So yeah, so I am teaching in both China and in Oman. It's just me in the classroom. And then what I would do is, if the students didn't understand between, writing things down or body language, then I would have students in China and Oman. I would have stronger students translate for me in their language to explain what they had to do.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's, in the sense of, in both countries, the students have had English, they had English since primary school. Not to the level of, what they have to perform now. But yeah, that's what I would do. And then sometimes, yeah, I would just kind of not designate, but there would be a couple of stronger students, who would say, "Do you want me to translate for you?" And I'd say, "Yes, please translate for me." So, and I know it's awful. I mean, I know that's so bad, because I should be learning things to say in the languages to help
Mhm.
them. But it's amazing what technology and translation can do. And
Yeah.
I remember when I was in China, I would go to the gym, and I had a trainer, and so I hardly spoke Chinese and he hardly spoke English. So between this app, we would just be able to communicate, and just between showing me things at the gym of what to do. I mean, it's just kind of how you got by. And so
Mhm.
um I'd say um in China, it was more, I had to learn, I was kind of forced to learn more, because the city that I lived in, it did not have, English translations, and it didn't have pictures, and it didn't, it wasn't a Shanghai or a Beijing.
Mhm.
You don't have tourists that go to my in Nanchang. You don't really have tourists. You have, I say it's a small city. It's a big city, but it's, not developed in the sense of, you wouldn't just come to Nanchang to see Nanchang. So I was
Yeah.
kind of forced. Now, when I left in 2017, everywhere had translations, pictures, this and that, but sometimes I just have to point to something, let's say at a restaurant, and just hope for the best. But I was able to get by. I was able to take transportation, take the train, take the subway, take the bus, um, kind of forced more. But then when I arrived in Oman, um, everywhere, everyone speaks English. So I didn't need anybody to take me to the bank to open up my account. I don't need anybody to take me to the hospital. Whereas in China, I had to have a friend go with me if I had to go to the doctor, or go with me if I had to open up a bank account, or, I had to have more help in China,
Mhm.
um, in terms of sometimes getting around those kinds of things. So yeah, but it's like I said, it's one of those, okay, I keep telling myself I will learn a language, I will continue, I will get back into my Arabic, but it's funny enough, I'm a teacher, but I will admit I'm a lazy student. So that that is how I will admit that I'm quite lazy when it comes to my
Funny.
English language classes.
That's funny. You kind of, I think you kind of spoke to it already, but what are some of the big challenges you faced, teaching and living abroad?
Well, I'd say, I mean, China was the first place I lived, lived abroad. And I remember what I did was I had spoken to a few people who had gone to China, and I had friends that were moving there who kind of were giving me the lowdown. And they had warned me, kind of, you have high expectations and standards, and things are completely different here in the US than they are in other countries. So they just told me, you know, put your expectations on the ground and don't expect much. So in the beginning, I remember arriving in China, and it was so hot, and I was just sweating profusely, and I was just meeting my new boss, and she's bringing me hot water. And I thought, I don't want hot water. I need cold water. I'm just sweating. So I remember just looking around, and, these men had their shirts rolled up, and they're, spitting food on the ground. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, just what is going on here? And it was just, so I think at first, not knowing the city, the language. I mean, I did take some Chinese lessons before I left, and I had an amazing teacher who was originally from Shanghai and was just giving me all these tips and things like that. So that really helped. And I think for me, I didn't really have culture shock when I came to China, in the sense of, because I had a really good friend living there, like her and her husband. So I think that helped, because as soon as I arrived, it was okay, I'm going to come get you, come over, so I really had already a support system set up. But I think at first, I remember we had to get physicals. So usually before you get a visa, you have to, at least in China, before I got over there, before they could get me my visa, I had to get a physical here. And then when you arrive there, you had to get a physical. And so for me, we were at this hospital, and I remember, first of all, everyone just cuts in line. That was, no one waits, but no one says anything either. Like, they don't get mad at you, right? Whereas here you'd say, there's a line. So everyone's just cutting. And I remember waiting to get an ultrasound, and then they're putting so there were 5 new teachers, and they were putting 2 of us in the same room for the ultrasound. And I thought, wait, the privacy, privacy issues. Like, why am I in the same room with somebody else waiting to get an ultrasound? So I think that was a little bit weird for me at first, of, this does not make any sense. And that was a bit strange. And then I would say, just trying to navigate, where things are, because like I said, there were no translations. There were no, and I remember the first time using the bus in China, trying to meet some friends, and she told me, where to meet. And I'm looking, and I ended up at the bus depot at the end of the bus line. And I thought, oh, I don't know where my friend is. I don't know where I am. And so I was so frustrated. And because for me, I do better by landmarks. Like, okay, at this landmark, get off here. So I finally that was hard for me at first. And then just everything kind of, after a few months, I just kind of settled, because I had, 4 other new teachers with me trying to navigate it. So I'd say, yeah, the whole privacy thing was a very strange thing to me. Like, as in, there is no privacy at the hospitals. Like, there is nothing in China. I remember I used to see this doctor near the university, and she spoke English, and I would go to her for acupuncture. And, it's just a room full of people, and there are no curtains, there are no anything. And so everyone's seeing everything. And I thought, you just learn to just, yeah, oh yeah. And you just learn to, like, cope, adapt. People are staring at you, because of course too, I'm the Westerner, right? And so I thought, hi, so you just sort of learn to, at first I thought, can I have my own, do you have a room? Like, you can close the door? And no, it's fine. So she finally would start putting me in rooms and closing the curtain. But at first they just don't do that. And it's the same at hospitals, that you share a big room with like 3 or 4 people, and there's just beds right next to each other, but there is no there's no curtain to draw space, so you're just there with everyone else. So that was challenging. And then it became just very humorous to me when people would stare at me. And I would say too, just some of the, obviously things are done completely different because, we're very big into privacy here, right? Especially with
Yeah.
healthcare. So,
Yeah.
that was unusual to me. In Oman, I do have privacy. When you go to the doctor or hospital, that they do close doors. But I would just say, the systems, like in China, everything is last minute. Sometimes you don't know what's happening. So if you're a big planner and an organizer, China will not be a place for you to live because everything is just last minute. And sometimes they'll cancel a class, but they won't let you know until the morning of. So you could be waiting for the school bus and then all of a sudden find out, oh, there's no class today because of some holiday. It's like, oh, okay, no problem.
Oh.
So I think those were some of at first, but because I was kind of warned about those things, I just became used to it in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's helpful to have someone there that can help you navigate that and warn you a little bit. But it sounds like China would be a tough place for me because I'm a very big planner and organizer.
But I encourage you to go and try it out because, if you're a big planner and organizer, I mean, have you been to China?
I've not been to China. I've been to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
I guess Hong Kong and Taiwan are part of China, but different cultures a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, that's another thing about travel that intrigues me is, those challenges of having to communicate different ways of experiencing life differently, of, how they go about things being different. It forces you to get out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
You got to kind of figure things out. And I think that really helps you grow as a person. I know it's really helped me in the past from my travels so far.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, it's one of those things where, you're used to one thing, right? But then exactly when you're traveling, you need to have that flexibility. And whether it's traveling or living abroad or anything, you need to have that, be flexible and be open to things and not get, I don't know what the word is I'm using, but, obviously, if you're used to one thing and you don't like it, you're going to have to either adapt or just, either not travel to that place because of how things are done differently. And holidays might be different, the way people eat will be different, the way people dress will be different in some countries, and so it's one of those. And I agree with you, you do grow as a person. And I remember when I was in China, I mean, there are many things I did that I never thought I would do. And then because you do have to adapt. But from there, I did grow. I really grew as a person. And I had to leave my comfort zone. And that, I feel, has made me a stronger person and has changed me for the better. And I think too, and you'll probably agree with me too, Kyle, is that when you travel also, I think you learn to appreciate what you have.
Oh yeah.
Because, in some places, like, they don't have the ability to turn on a faucet and then you have hot or cold water, whether you turn it to the left or the right,
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the big things that I guess it's become something I really look at and appreciate, is the fact that we have such easy access to clean drinking water here. That is certainly not the case in a lot of parts of the world.
Yeah.
And just that, something that's so, the most necessary thing for life. So many people have such a struggle to even have that.
Yeah.
It's
And we don't even, and when I say we, I'm saying me as well. I mean, it's one of those, before anytime when you travel, you learn these things, right? Because wherever you are, it's not even just about water. Could be about many things, but it's just like, right. It's like, growing up, I just never had any problems with that. I've been very fortunate. And I remember also, in China, at the university that I was at, the students don't have hot water in the dormitory. So if they wanted to take a hot shower, they had to go shower somewhere else, but pay money for it. And then in the winter, where I lived, the winters are just cold and wet because, it rains all the time. And I'm thinking, and they're not allowed to have electric blankets because, of they're afraid that they're going to leave them on and something will happen. So they can't even have heaters in the dormitory and so it's like, even those small things of, again, this whole, imagine not even having hot water and having to pay extra money for hot water because you want a hot shower. So
Mhm.
I really learned that. I remember that first winter when I was there, and I was thinking, because my apartment, in China had hot water, but I thought, wow, like I couldn't imagine having to pay extra money to have a hot shower. And it just really, those small things that we take for granted, even myself, that's just wow. You know what I mean? So and like you said, there are many parts of the world that don't even have clean water, access to it.
Mhm.
So it's very, and it's eye opening. And I think that's another reason why we travel, right? And live and learn
Yeah.
about other cultures, because I've learned, because when I lived in China and now living in Oman, I mean, I have met friends from around the world, and I've learned about their cultures and, how they do things. And that's how you get to learn other things too. And even when you meet people traveling, I mean, you just, different cultures, different walks of life, and everyone's kind of in a different path. And it's really fascinating to just talk to other people and just kind of get their take on things in life too. So that's also a great thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Kind of along those lines, I'm curious, how do you see the world, differently since traveling and living abroad for the last 10 years?
Well, oh, that's a good question.
It's probably a really hard question to answer.
I know that is a really hard question to answer. Let's see. I mean, I would say, besides learning to appreciate things, I've learned that I've learned, to kind of live a more simple life. Isn't, I don't know if it's simple life, but I've just learned that, um all these things that we think we need, right? Like all this stuff that we always buy and this and that, like it's not that important. It's just stuff. Like,
Yeah.
those are, I mean, that's compared to the world. And I also feel um it how to word this, Kyle, a very tough question. So it's very I think the world, I think too, in a way of, because I've always wanted to do, I've always done volunteer work wherever, like in China, I volunteered at an orphanage and at a hearing impaired school for children, a kindergarten. And I've always found that to be also very important, is to like help out when you can. Um, Whether it's donating your time, whether it's, if you can make a small contribution. And I think too, um, just learning about, like you were saying, like here, we only get one side of things, right? And I feel that the world is, you will find countries, like, for example, like in Southeast Asia, I'm sure you probably went to Cambodia, and it's one of those, they don't have much, but they are just like the happiest people. And they are
Yeah.
so kind and so friendly. And it's like, you think, well, how can they be, so happy and kind, and, and look at the status of their country. But it's just, so I think too, that's also for me like eye opener of like, wow. And I feel like in here, sometimes people are just so unhappy, and it's just,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things of like, here these people don't have anything, and there's begging on the streets, and there's, it's gotten really, I've heard it's gotten a little bit worse since, but I've been there twice. But but it's just like they're just, I love Cambodia, and I go back there again in a heartbeat. And so it's just those, I don't even know if I'm even answering your question now, sorry, but it's just
Yeah, yeah,
you know
no, you're doing good.
that's that's what I also think, is that you kind of realize that things that you think are a huge issue, like, oh my gosh, I don't know, couldn't blow dry my hair this morning, or I don't know, I'm not saying that's an example, but it's like you just learn, like, I just don't, I don't need all of these things. I don't need,
Mhm.
anyway. But yeah, so I think you learn too that, like, actually other countries are actually very similar to us. I think, you know, we sometimes can share some like similar cultures as other countries. And so I also find that some countries really aren't as different as we are, and
Mhm.
I find that too, that just because another country may dress differently, we sometimes have some of the same values, but in a different way. And we believe in some of the same things, but it's just a little bit different. So I've also learned that as well, that, we actually aren't that different. And so if I have not answered this question, Kyle, I apologize.
No, that was a great answer. It's a hard thing to think about, I think. But no, you're totally right. I know that traveling has changed my view on the world for sure. And like you said, when you were talking about Cambodia, it made me think of when I went to Guatemala and how I saw some of the poorest people on the planet and just saw them struggling to survive every day, but they were some of the happiest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And it really made me realize, like, there's other ways to go about life. It's not just the U.S. perspective. And it actually might, in some cases, be better for some people to not focus on the materialistic stuff or that sort of thing. It's given me a perspective where I can see that there's different ways of doing things, and they're not right or wrong. It's just what do you like best? What fits you, what makes you happy. And that's really the one similarity I've seen between all the places I've been, all the people I've met around the world, is all anyone wants to do is just live a happy life, and um, just take care of others and themselves and their family, and just be happy.
Yeah.
Where a lot of this, all the bad stuff that's going on, it's all, to me, it's all really not that important. We make it so important, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it really is.
Yeah. No, I would completely agree with you. And, like you made a point, like Guatemala, that's also on my list. I've never been there, and it's on my list. But, and like you said too, I mean, people are probably, when you went there, they were probably like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going there. Maybe they didn't,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they did have that reaction for you, and maybe they didn't. But it's one of those things where it's like, just tune out all of those things, because it's not as bad as like the media portrays it to be. And it's one of those things, like you said, like people just want to be happy, and people, I think, just want to maybe help other people. And I always say travel is like the best education you can give
Oh
yourself
yeah.
and anybody else. And you will learn so much more than, and like you said, just being happy and just having a good life. And I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I will continue to say and continue to push for is, I think every high school senior in the U.S. after they graduate should have to go abroad to a place like Guatemala or Cambodia, at least for a couple of weeks, and just learn and experience the culture before they come back and go to college or go into the workforce or whatever. I think it really would open a lot of people's eyes here, and would really, help people appreciate what they do have.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, because I know in Europe it's very common, right? Where everyone after high school
Mm-hmm.
takes like a gap year, and they travel or do whatever before they go off to university. And I think, yeah, there should be some sort of, like you said, even just for a couple of weeks, to kind of volunteer or go out, because I think more people would definitely appreciate, these, like you were saying, these big things don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter compared to what other people are going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. There's so much more out there than just the little bubble we live in most of our lives.
I know. So for you, where's your next travel destination? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I got a couple things planned. Domestically, I'm headed to the Northeast in about a month or so. I'm trying to finish all 50 states this year, and then abroad, I'm gonna head to Morocco.
Oh, nice.
Um, via I'm gonna be in Iceland for a couple days, Madrid for a day, and then go back through Portugal on the way home. So I'll get a nice little mixture of cultures there, and get to experience somewhere new, because I haven't got to go to Africa yet. So that'll be fun. I'm really excited for it.
Oh my God, that sounds like an amazing trip. I will be waiting. I will be looking for your photos on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait to go experience some of that, and show people what it's like over there. Because I think, again, there's some misconceptions of Morocco
Yeah.
here in the U.S., and so I'd like to show people what it's actually like too.
Yeah. No, that's definitely. I think it's a great way to, like I said, because I know you've got your YouTube channel and
Hmm.
you've got your podcast and the website, and I think it's really great that what you're doing is just opening people's eyes, encouraging people to travel, and just meeting people along the way. I think that's great because I hope in the future more people will learn from you and from others that, just get outside of your comfort zone, and there's so many places to go to, right? So,
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it'd make the world a better place if we all, got to interact with each other and actually experience each other.
yeah, no, that's so true. That is so true because then you kind of, you get rid of those stigmas, right? That you think in
Hmm.
your mind of like, oh, and once you go there, you'd realize, oh, this is totally different, than what you
Yeah.
imagine. So like I said before, is Oman safe? It is the safest country. I can leave everything on my table at a coffee shop and nothing will be gone at the end of the day. So
Wow.
yeah. So it's one of those, yeah, that's awesome that what you're doing. So I really appreciate you and everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I got a couple more questions for you. I'm curious, having been abroad for so long, do you miss home at all? Do you miss your family?
I mean, I come home every year, for about a month, usually during the summer. So it's good to see family and good to see friends back here. Sometimes you miss home, right? Sometimes it's these little things that you miss. But overall, I it's always it's always great to come home and it's always nice to go back, if that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
kind of I couldn't imagine not living abroad. So it's one of those after Oman, I will eventually, who knows where I'll go next, but I plan to move somewhere else abroad. Still working on that. So it's one of those in the beginning. Oh, I mean, you kind of get over, oh, I'm missing Christmas, I'm missing Thanksgiving, because then you make your new
Mhm.
traditions with friends, and then you can still do those kind of parties, but just do it differently. Like I usually have friends over for Thanksgiving, but I cook other food. Like one time I did Thanksgiving like with food around the world. And then last year we did, everyone bring a dish and everyone kind of brought their own dish from their country. So, just sometimes like that, or sometimes I do Western style food for those types of things. So you just
Mhm.
make the most of it and you make different kinds of traditions. So that's what makes it easy. And I've been lucky because I've met some great people and I've made some great friends. So it's not as hard being away.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I like that. Um, uh, and you mentioned before we hopped on here that you just went to Peru. So before we hop off here, I'm really curious. How was your trip to Peru?
Oh my gosh, I love Peru. That's the first time I've explored South America. I would love to
Okay.
go back and explore more of South America. But Peru is an amazing country. They have a really cool culture. I was in Lima, I was in Cusco. I hiked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, which
Oh
was
man.
it was just I can't even explain it. I'm currently working on writing a story about it, but just learning the history about the Incas and like you were saying, talk about meeting people from different parts of the world, which I did
Mhm.
with my hiking group. And it was just, Peru, the food, the people, the culture, just everyone is it's an amazing place. I wish I was there about 3 weeks. I wish I had spent more time there. Wish I had had more time there. But
Mhm.
I would definitely go back. I would recommend Peru to anybody for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
really a really friendly and safe country. And because I went there solo, and I also went into the Amazon. But it
Oh
was
wow.
yeah, it's just amazing. So I encourage everybody to go to Peru.
Oh man, I'm jealous. Can't wait to read the story on that. Peru's been towards the top of my list for a long time now, and really looking forward to getting there soon.
Yeah, I think you'll love it. I think you will. And as I've said, it was just my first time in South America. And if I had had time, I would have loved to gone to other places in South America, but next time, right? So
Yeah.
there's always next time. Yeah.
Yep. Right. Well, really quick, tell us some of the trips you have coming up potentially, and what are some like fun takeaways you've had, or maybe some serendipitous type moments you've had while teaching and living abroad.
Let's see. So some upcoming trips. I really hope to get to Zanzibar soon. And
Okay.
I would like to also go to Georgia and Azerbaijan, maybe in the
Mhm.
winter. Um, and then so some funny takeaways. I think, oh, there's so many things. I think sometimes I just have these moments of like, I can't believe I'm abroad. I can't believe I'm teaching. Um, but hmm, I think some takeaway moments of just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done this. And I can't believe I'm having this life
Mhm.
abroad. I guess is my moment of like, wow, are these things really happening? I mean, I
Yeah.
have it's an easy lifestyle in the sense of, so it's very laid back, and I think I make the most of it, exploring and learning and meeting other people. So I think that's maybe my experience from it.
Yeah, I love that. I know I've had a couple of those moments abroad. When you said that, it immediately made me think of when I was running around Italy early in the morning, and ran to the Colosseum and watched the sunrise over the Colosseum, and there's nobody else around, and all I could think about was like, where am I standing right now? Like I'm standing on so much history. I'm looking at one of the most iconic things in the world, and it's just that moment of bliss where you're just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, that's what I can only imagine your feeling. That's must have been awesome. I had that same feeling when it's the Inca Trail is 4 days in Peru, and I had that same feeling of like at the end of it overlooking Machu Picchu, and it's like, wow, like this is just I can't believe I've done this. So I guess yeah, those same feelings. So your experience, that would be amazing, especially with nobody around with
Mhm.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Erin, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, and we'll definitely have to have you back on once you've, taught in another place and done some more travels, and hear how those have gone. But thanks again. I really appreciate this, and I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate it as well. And thanks for inviting me on. And as I said, I look forward to more of your podcasts and the people you're talking to and all of your upcoming travels.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And really quickly, where can people find you?
They can find me. The best way to find me is on Instagram. It's just Erin's Hot Pot. So ERINS and then Hot Pot.
Okay. And you have a website as well, correct?
I do. ErinsHotPot.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, everyone should go check that out. I know I've really enjoyed looking at your Instagram photos. You got some good ones on there, especially of Peru recently.
Thank
Um,
you.
so looking forward to more of those, and hope we can connect around the world somewhere soon.
Yeah, that would be great. We'll definitely have to plan a trip.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Aaron. Well, thanks again, and I will talk with you later.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify and Anchor. And now you can also listen on YouTube. Links are in the description below. If you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page and or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my new show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to discuss one specific travel topic, whether that be questions I get from listeners, sharing some souvenirs that I've bought over the years, or discussing one particular city or country that I've been to, and so much more. You'll be able to listen to that via Spotify and Anchor as well, and be able to see the video version, which I'm really excited about, on YouTube. So check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. And thanks again for listening, and I will see you around the world soon.